Tim Deephouse. Jeff Stuppy has a book for you. I'm checking off my administrative things. So sometime today, connect with him. Well, welcome back. We are back into our end time study again this week. I don't remember, was there a question that was left unanswered last week? What's that? Your question probably, yeah. You ask a question, I kick the can down the road for 2 weeks. But we're going to stay looking at the Millennial Kingdom. And just by way of review, so last week, so what we have up here, you can, if you haven't looked this over yet, this board we have the 7-year tribulation. We just have a simple timeline. Ignore these details right now, the colors. And then the timeline begins also, this board is just representative of the Millennial Kingdom. Okay? Now I say Millennial Kingdom. Let's just confirm a couple of things, okay? So we have a period of time where there are going to be tremendous judgments from God upon the earth, where his wrath is going to be poured out on the earth because it's in rebellion against him. How long is this period of time that is coming? 7 years, okay? Do you remember that these last 7 years are the last 7 years of how many years in total? What was the total number of years from Daniel's prophecy? Anybody remember that? This one's extra credit. 70 weeks, but years, not the weeks. 4-6, close. 490, that's right. There's a couple jewels in your crown. There you go. Good. Good. He's so humble. He's so humble. Take notes on your humility and pass it around. You should be proud of that humility. We have, I lost my train of thought already. So 490 years, right? And we've had 483 years of that timeline has already transpired. When did that 483 years stop? What was the event that led to the stop right there at 483 years? Nope. When Jesus died on the cross, yes, because Daniel 9 said it'll be 69 weeks, 483 years, if you multiply that out, 483 years, until the cutting off of the Anointed One, right? And he will have nothing, it says. So then you have that happening way back in human history. Now you have this timeline, this marker right here. This marks the beginning of that last 7-year period. We're somewhere, I don't know, we could be right here, we could be further back, who knows, but we're getting closer every single day. Every day we're closer to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. And as we explored a couple weeks ago, the rapture of the church out of the world, and then sometime, whether right away or not, or a longer time away, the 7-year tribulation will begin. But what is according to Daniel 9, what was the event that marks the beginning of that 7 years? Do you remember? Peace treaty, signing of the covenant between the ruler, okay, the lawless one, and the people of Daniel, okay? So Israel. So a covenant with Israel. So this 7-year period will begin. We've explored a number of things. We're still not leaving this behind. We're going to explore some more things in it in the coming weeks. But you have the 7-year period. What marks the end of that period? What's that? Speak it up loud. I'm getting older and deafer. The second coming of Jesus Christ. So I don't have room to put that on here, but if you can imagine like a gigantic big right here. That marks the end of that 7-year period. It also is Jesus as he comes down and all the events that we've discussed that are going to happen, he is then going to begin a kingdom here on earth. And now how long is that kingdom? I know I put the answer on the board, but if someone were to say to you, how do you know it's going to be 1,000 years? How do you know? Where does it tell you that? What's that? In Revelation, anybody remember the chapter? 20? Come, some jewels in your guys' crowns. You guys are killing it this morning. Good. So 1,000-year kingdom. Jesus is going to come back, set up a 1,000-year kingdom. We saw last week as we explored, where's my brown marker at? There it is. We saw Satan's career. When Christ comes back, he's thrown into the abyss. And at the end of this 1,000 years, he's going to come back up and be released from the abyss. Now, we'll get to that in a moment. But one of the questions we asked last week was, if Satan is going to be released at the end of the 1,000 years, and it says in Revelation 20 that he's going to go out and deceive the nations, and he's going to rally the nations against Christ, who's reigning from which city? Jerusalem. Okay? The Jews are all in Israel. All that Abrahamic, Mosaic, new, Davidic covenants are all being fulfilled for 1,000 years, right? They're gonna all converge by the mobilization of Satan and his energy and his deception on Jesus and Israel, and they are going to converge there for a grand global war against him, it says in Revelation 20. And then what's going to come down from heaven? Huh? Not an army, fire. Yep, someone said fire. Fire from heaven is going to come down, devour them. Okay? And that's going to put an end to this millennial kingdom and then future events, which we're going to explore in the coming weeks. But the question we had, if you're like me, the question I have is, who is Satan going to deceive? Like, how could he possibly deceive people in the kingdom? Because for 1,000 years, he was in the abyss, unable, it says, to deceive the nations. The whole world is going to be under the rule of Jesus Christ during this 1,000 years. You're telling me that somehow it says for half a time he will be released. Let's just say that that's the same length of time as other uses of that phrase in the book of Revelation when it says times, and half a time. Let's say it's 6 months. Let's say he's released for 6 months. And in 6 months, he's able to rally the entire world and create a global army to converge on Israel to fight Jesus. Like that many people will be able to be deceived? Where did they come from? Okay? Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Now, again, I think I'm right, the way I'm going to explain this. You'll get a bunch of crazy theologians who think that I'm not right, but I'm right and they're wrong. So they can get their own marker boards. Let's look at a few things here, okay? So when Jesus Christ comes back, we see that there are people who are going to be part of his kingdom with him. Okay? I want you to open up your Bibles to Daniel chapter 7. And if you're familiar with Daniel 7, you might be getting a little prematurely excited thinking, oh, are we going to go to verses 13 and 14? No, that's in the sermon today. Stick around. We're going to go towards the end of chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7. So Daniel sees this amazing vision, and he sees this ruler who's committing unbelievable blasphemies, doing terrible things, conquering but being cruel. And then verse 26, it says this, speaking of heaven, but the court will sit, and his, that is this lawless ruler, the Antichrist, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the what? Kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. That's an amazing couple of verses right there. A lot in there. But one thing I want you to see is this. The kingdoms of this earth are going to be taken away from who? The Antichrist. And the kingdom is going to be handed over to who, does it say in there? The saints, okay? The saints. Now, I think we could interpret that being very broadly all the righteous that God has in mind, who he has saved among all ages, who are aimed for and destined for this kingdom and eternity afterwards, right? I think that's a fair interpretation of saints as very broadly speaking. Now, go to Matthew chapter 24. I really want to sit there and just study those two verses still, but those are amazing. Well, we got to go to Matthew 24. So Matthew 24, which we spent some time in, and I want us to look at verses 22 and 31, and look what Jesus says here. If those days, and which days are those that he's speaking about? 7 years. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. So pause. Number one, if those days were not cut short, what would have happened to the elect? They would have been wiped out. Maybe some would possibly, because he says possibly even deceive the elect a couple of verses earlier, but death. They all would have died for sure. But he's going to cut it short so that when that time ends, there will be some elect, right, that are still alive. Keep that in mind. And then let's go to verse 31, where he says this. And he, that is Christ, at his appearing, will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So what's going to happen? He's going to send his angels out, and he's going to bring them from all over back to where his throne is going to be set up, to the city that his throne is going to be set up in. Where is Jesus' throne going to be set up? Jerusalem, okay? So he's going to bring them all back to Israel. The elect will be brought back to Israel. Does that remind you of a particular covenant that we examined? How long ago was that? October through March, I think we were looking at these. Was that a 6-month study? Israel? It was supposed to be a 6-week study. So Israel's covenant, the new covenant, promised multiple things. Promised one thing. One of those 6 things was that the Jews would be regathered from all the nations, brought back into Israel, and established. And when they were brought back, other things also would be happening. They would be regenerated. The Spirit of God would come into them. And they would no longer have to teach one another, know the Lord, obey the Lord, because they would all know the Lord. They would all obey him, all the Jews. That's the promise of the new covenant. New covenant is first and foremost given to the Jewish people. Okay? So we see that the new covenant is going to be fulfilled at the second coming of Jesus when he regathers the elect. I think in Matthew 24 specifically, I think it has Jews in mind. Matthew 24 is very, very Jewish. They will bring you before synagogues to persecute you. When you see the abomination causing desolation set up in the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, get out of Jerusalem, flee Judea. He's talking about Jewish people, right? And then as they flee, they go where? Where do they go? All over the place, all around the world, right? They're the ones who are going to be regathered because they're going to be fleeing for the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. And then they're not going to have any sanctuary, any safety from the hand of Satan or the Antichrist until Christ comes back, puts an end to the Antichrist, as Daniel says, demolishes his power forever, and then regathers the saints from around the world and hands the kingdom over to them. Okay? Now, I think it's specifically the Jews. They're going to be regathered. Okay? But then we also see that there are not just Jews who are going to enter the kingdom. Here's my question. When Jesus Christ brings the Jews from around the world who survive the tribulation, what bodies are they in? Speak up. What? Normal bodies, right? Keep that in mind. Sheep, Matthew 25. Go to Matthew 25 with me. Matthew 25 and verse 31. And it says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. I love this. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people from all the nations, one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right, and he will put the goats on his left. Now, we saw last week where the goats are going to end up. Do you remember where the goats are going to end up when Christ returns right here? Into the lake of fire. Along with what two other people? The Antichrist and who? False prophet. Yep. So they will be the first two people thrown into the lake of fire, followed by all the goats thrown into the fire. Then the kingdom begins. You know why? It's a purging of the earth in order for the righteous kingdom of Jesus Christ to be set up. No one will enter it who is evil or wicked, condemned or judged, and has rebelled against Jesus Christ. It's a purging, it's the ultimate draining of the swamp, is what it is. And the only people who will come in, it'll be from top to bottom, will be a glorious, righteous rule and administration in this kingdom. Now, so the sheep we see here, he says, then the king will say to those on his right, come you who are blessed by my Father, verse 34, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. Right? So he tells them they get to enter the kingdom. What did Daniel say? Daniel said the Antichrist rule will be put to an end, and the rule over this world for him will be done. But the rule over this world, the kingdom that will then be set up by Jesus Christ, will be handed over to the saints, be handed over to the righteous ones, the set-apart ones, right? And that includes Jewish righteous, Gentile righteous. They will come in and take possession of the kingdom. They will get to live in live in the kingdom. That's what they'll get to do, okay? So we see Matthew 25 talking about the sheep. Now here's my point. Matthew 25. From chapter 25, what can you tell about the timing of this goat and sheep judgment? Does it happen prior to Jesus' coming? How do you know that? Yes. Hoyt pointed out the very first verse, verse 30 says, or 31 is it? 31 says, when the Son of Man comes. Not some invisible, mystical appearing, not even the rapture, which is secret, which isn't seen by the whole world, happens suddenly and then we're out of here and we're gone and the world is left to wonder, where did all these people go? Not that. It's the global, visible, in power and glory, opening up of the heavens with the host of heavens coming down with him, and then landing on the earth, having taken over the earth, and then sitting down in Jerusalem on his throne. That's when this happens, when the sheep will be separated out and then given permission to come into the kingdom. Come in. This kingdom's been prepared for you from before the foundation of the world by my Father. Go enter it. So they get to enter. So you got all the sheep going in, and they're like, woohoo! The Jewish elect are regathered, are going in. They're like, man, all our covenants are coming true. This is awesome. They're all going in, right? Who else is going in to the kingdom? Yes, we, the church. We were taken out of the world and before the tribulation, and then at the end of the tribulation, anybody who's pre-trib who thinks that we're going to come back with Jesus when the clouds separate, with swords in our hands, on horses, fighting with him, I think, isn't reading carefully what the Bible says. We're not going to fight. Those who are coming back with Jesus to fight are the angels. It's the angels. The angels are coming back with Jesus to fight. We're the bride. We're the babe. We come down after it's like, go take care of him, honey. Once you clean house, once you get our home ready, right, take care of him, then we come down. Like in Revelation 18 talks about Is it 18 or 19? 19. It says, then I saw the bride coming down, the bride of the Lamb coming down like in all her glory. Well, what happens? Yeah, after he destroys Babylon. Read chapter 18. Chapter 18 is like this, I think I said it last week, this savage divine ruin of Babylon. Horrible, horrible, horrible destruction of Babylon. God's righteous judgment over it. And after that, then it's like, here comes the bride. So get rid of Babylon, bring in the bride. So Jesus does that with his angels. We come down, but we enter the kingdom. 1 Corinthians 6 says, you might remember 1 Corinthians 6, Paul says to the Corinthians, he says, why are you clowns suing each other? Why are you taking each other to court, suing each other? He says, why not you just accept you've been wronged by your brother? Instead, you put the name of Christ to shame by having by having pagans judge your disputes for you. He says, is there no one among you who can judge your dispute for you in between you two Christians? So he's on them about this, right? But he says right there, when he's rebuking them, he makes this comment. He says, don't you know that you will rule angels? Don't you know you will rule and judge the world to come? Are you completely unfit in light of this to judge minor disputes or significant disputes between yourselves? Think about that. Think about that. So Paul is getting on them about suing Christians, and he says in the middle of that, we will rule, we will judge, okay? So now, what does that look like? That can look like it can be a both and situation. It can be either or situation. So one thing that could mean is that we will judge when Jesus sets up his court, okay? At the beginning of the kingdom, right before the kingdom, when he sets up his court and he's going to judge the goats, he's going to judge the nations. It could be that the church is involved in that in some way, making judgments about people, okay? Contributing to Jesus's. He's like the judge of judges, but we're like judges underneath, and we're making judgments for him at that. That could be possible. Why do I think that? Because also when he comes back, there's going to be a resurrection, which we'll get to in just a moment. And in Matthew chapter 12, it says that the queen of Sheba, is going to stand up and condemn the towns in Israel who rejected Jesus. She will stand up at the resurrection, at the judgment of Jesus Christ. She will come up from the dead, and she will pronounce judgment on those towns that saw Jesus' miracles, heard his preaching, and rejected him. They will condemn her. He even said the city of Nineveh will come up and judge that generation that repented from Jonah's preaching. They will stand up, the city of Nineveh, and they will judge the towns of Israel that rejected Jesus. So Jesus it's his judgment. He's executing judgment at his return, right? But it seems like he's involving some people. And it may be that the church is involved in that. But judging and ruling may also mean not just the judgment in like a court setting, but governmental rule within his kingdom. The church will have a governmental role in his kingdom whereby we rule with him in the kingdom that is to come. So that could be also what 1 Corinthians 6 is meaning. Where are we at on time? Plenty of time. Okay, so these are the, so you've got the saints and you've got the sheep who are coming into the kingdom, and they are not resurrected. They are not glorified bodies. They have normal bodies like we have right now, which is going to be important when we get to the next couple points. Then you have the church, which we have our glorified bodies, which we received where? I know I'm giving it away, but at the rapture, prior to the tribulation. Because we saw that the rapture event included two phases. One, the dead will be raised up with their glorified bodies, and the living in that moment when it happens will be transformed instantly. 1 Corinthians 15, 1 Thessalonians 4, will be transformed instantly into their glorified bodies. They will not taste death, they will taste translation. Or as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15, he says, we will be all changed, we'll all be changed in the twinkling of an eye. And he's saying that those who are alive, their bodies will be changed instantly into glorified bodies. Now, so the church enters in glorified bodies. Then you've got another two groups that still need to be recognized as having a part in the kingdom, getting to not only participate, but live in and have some pretty significant roles in the kingdom. And that is the Old Testament saints and the tribulation saints, all who are dead. So we got a bunch of dead righteous saints who need to get into this kingdom. But in order for them to get into the kingdom, right, they need to come alive. They need to be undead. Undeaded. Yeah. So what does that look like? Go back to Daniel, if you will, Daniel chapter 12. I don't know about you, but whenever I say or hear somebody say, turn to Daniel, I'm like, that's exciting. That's a good move on that teacher-preacher's part right there. It doesn't matter what he's preaching on. As long as he knows Daniel, yes. So, Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. At that time, Michael, the great prince, at that time is referring to this time right here, okay? Remember, there's war in heaven between Satan and who? What is it? Michael. Satan's army and Michael's army, okay? And that happens halfway through the tribulation. This war is taking place, and Michael overcomes Satan and casts him down to the earth halfway through. But look what it says. At that time, the tribulation time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, Daniel, which are who, which people? Jews. Michael is assigned to the Jews. There will be a time, he will arise. There will be a time of distress, such has not happened from the beginning of the nations until then. Who else said that line? Jesus in Matthew 24, when he said, there will be a time of distress unlike any time up until then in all of human history, Jesus said. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Your people. Who's Daniel's people? Jewish. And not all Jews. Which Jews? They have their name where? In the book. Okay? They're the elect. They're the ones who have been scattered but are going to be regathered. Okay? It says they will be delivered. Now, of course, obviously, that certainly means their eternal salvation. But it also means they're going to be delivered from the persecution of Satan. Because remember, when Satan was cast down to the earth, he went after, through the Antichrist, energized the Antichrist to persecute the Jews, which is why Jesus says, flee Jerusalem. Get out of there when you see the abomination that causes desolation. The Jews flee. And it says in Revelation 12 that they ran to and escaped his hand. They went to a place prepared for them that God had prepared where they would be able to be safe for a time, times, and half a time, 3.5 years. They'll be safe out of the reach of, probably not comfortable, probably not convenient, very difficult survival. Master your bushcraft, 3.5 years till the end, and then they'll be delivered from all of that persecution and that running and that hiding and that Holocaust that the Antichrist is trying to perform on them. So he's going to, so then they'll be delivered, but then look at what verse 2 says. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake. What's he saying? Resurrection. Dead are going to come alive. Some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens. So there's going to be a resurrection, he says, and that resurrection, what does he say here? He says, verse 13, very last verse of the book of Daniel. As for you, Michael tells him, go your way till the end, you will rest, and then at the end of the days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance. Rise means what? Resurrection. When is the resurrection of the Jewish people going to take place? According to the new covenant. What? What's that? No. Oh, out loud. You were. I'm just glad you're thinking. At the coming of the Messiah. At the coming of the Messiah. Okay? When Christ comes, their resurrection will happen. So there will be Jews who are regathered, who survive the tribulation, but all the Jewish saints, Daniel, Moses, right? Isaiah, right? Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Samuel, Hannah, right? All of them. What's that awesome wife of David's? David, but not David's his wife, but David, his wife. But King David's going to be resurrected as well. But who was that wife? Was it Abigail? Is that her name? Oh, she was awesome, right? So all these people are going to be resurrected, it says, to receive what? According to Daniel, verse 13. Rise to receive your what? Your inheritance. Your allotted inheritance. What's been portioned to you, Daniel, and what has been portioned to anyone who will participate in that resurrection. Now, here's the question. This is cool. You read verse 2, not Jesus, Gabriel says, he says that some will, people who are sleeping in the dust of the earth will rise up, some to everlasting righteousness, others, or everlasting life, others to everlasting condemnation, which makes you think that both of those groups are going to come up at the same time, right? Go to Revelation 20. Daniel 12 right there, verse 2, is just like John chapter 5, where Jesus says, there's coming a time when the dead will hear my voice and they will come out of their graves, some to everlasting life, others to everlasting condemnation. So again, Jesus is reiterating things that were said already in the book of Daniel, which, who said it through Daniel? God, Jesus, right? So he already said it. He's just repeating himself. But where are we at? Revelation 20. So look at this. Okay, look at verse 4. I saw thrones on which were seated those who had been given authority to judge, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony about Jesus and because of the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. Watch verse 5. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. Okay, pause. Oh, I love this. People laugh at this, but it's like, read what it says. It says, there's going to come a resurrection where? Before, during, or after the 1,000 years, right there. What did we just read? Before, okay? This is the which resurrection, does it say? First resurrection. It's also another, there's a moral character to the resurrection. What does it say there? Starts with an R and ends with righteousness. Okay? Verse 5. This is the first resurrection. Verse 6. Blessed and holy are those who share in the which resurrection? First. Which therefore excludes which group of people from the resurrection and this resurrection? The unrighteous, the condemned, who will rise to the condemned. So now what we're seeing is that in God's plans is that everybody will be raised, but not at the same time. Remember how we saw 1 Corinthians 15 said this? That there will be a resurrection, but everyone in their own turn, everyone in their own in order. Jesus first, then when he comes, those who belong to him, right? The rapture, there's a resurrection of Christians here at the rapture. Then we're going to see that there's going to be a resurrection of Old Testament righteous saints coming up in order to enter into the kingdom. We also see, according to Revelation 20, what other group is going to be raised up for this kingdom. What's that? The martyrs during which period? During the tribulation. Because chapter 20 in Revelation said they did not do what when they were alive in the tribulation? What did they refuse to do? They didn't get the mark, and they refused to worship the image of the beast. So they were what? They were beheaded. But they were beheaded by the Antichrist here, only to his horror, here be raised up so that they could do what in this kingdom? What's that? Rule. on thrones with Jesus. So the population, the initial population of the kingdom of Jesus Christ includes the Jewish elect who are regathered from around the world after they've been scattered, the Gentiles who are judged to be sheep, who are worthy of entering into and taking possession of the kingdom, the church of Jesus Christ, and then the resurrected Old Testament saints and tribulation saints who were martyred. The righteous ones get to do that. According to Revelation 20, this is the first resurrection right here, which has phases because we would be considered part of that. Jesus was the first, Christians are going to be the second, Old Testament saints and tribulation saints are going to be the third phase, but it's all the righteous resurrection, the first resurrection. It's in phases. Why is it the first resurrection? Because it's those who are worthy to be entering into the kingdom that Jesus Christ is going to rule over on the earth. They get to possess it. They get to possess it. The second resurrection is going to take place at the end of the millennial kingdom. And everybody who didn't get resurrected to enter into this kingdom is going to be resurrected here, but they're going to be resurrected for their judgment and their condemnation. Horrifying. Drives evangelism with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Drives evangelism. So, where am I going with this? Okay, really, really important point, because all that is an introduction to the answer to our initial question in the beginning. Dave's nodding his head like, some of you are like, what was the question? I mean, you lost me a long time ago. The initial question was, who are the people that are going to rebel against Jesus Christ that have been living in the kingdom all this time? Who is it that is the people that are going to be deceived by Satan when he's let out of the abyss? That could possibly be deceived. Could it be the Old Testament saints and tribulation saints who are resurrected and they have glorified bodies, no longer being indwelt by sin? Could it be them? No. Couldn't be them, because they're going to come in, they're going to have glorified bodies, they'll rule. Could it be the church who is glorified and is going to live in the kingdom in glorified bodies? No longer the presence of sin within, the indwelling of sin is gone. Okay? Could it be the church that's deceived? No. Then we have the last two categories, sheep and the Jewish elect from around the world, Gentiles and Jews, who are in what bodies? Normal physical bodies. Now there's two truths about these. There's a lot of truths about these bodies, but the two truths that are important for the question is this. Number one, what do these bodies contain within them? Sin. The same sin from the garden. Our first parents, Adam and Eve. They will enter into the kingdom in non-glorified bodies, and they will bring into the kingdom the sin nature inside themselves. Even though they're sheep, and even though they're the Jewish elect, they are in their fallen bodies, not glorified, not translated and transformed into their glorified bodies, like our bodies. So they come in, and the first truth is they're bringing in the sin nature. But the second truth is you're going to procreate. So you will have a seed population at the beginning of the tribulation that is whatever size that's going to be, however many people that's going to be. But over the course of 1,000 years, as procreation is happening, right? Not only is the number of people, not only are the number of people increasing on the face of the earth, but what also is increasing? Sin. Now here's the thing. Here's going to be the difference. Is that sin going to have free reign in the kingdom of Jesus Christ? What's going to happen to that sin? It's going to be suppressed. You know how Romans 1 says they suppress the truth with unrighteousness? It'll be reversed in the kingdom. They suppress lies, evil, and unrighteousness with the truth and righteousness. Because remember that CRT study we did, hegemony. Hegemony being like the prevailing thoughts and culture about what's right, what's normal, what's okay, what's acceptable, the way things ought to be. That whole mindset, the zeitgeist of the time, it will be righteousness. So what you see right now None of that will have free reign. What does it say? When rulers are evil, wickedness goes unrestrained in a society, Proverbs says. Okay? What happens when you have a perfect ruler, Jesus Christ, King of Kings, on the earth? What happens when underneath him, as he's in Israel, Israel is as it should be, as all the prophets promised through the covenants that they would be? What about all the other nations when you have David, can you imagine meeting these decapitated saints in the kingdom? Could you imagine? We are going to be able to meet Isaiah. That's why I ask these questions. Who in the Old Testament would you want to meet? Like, who's the first person you would want to meet? I mean that. It's not rhetorical right now. Throw some names out. What's that? David. Moses. Abraham. Joseph. Right? All these people are going to be in the kingdom, and these guys are going to serve Jesus Christ. The church, the greats of the church and the whole bride of Jesus Christ is going to rule with Jesus Christ. The tribulation saints, the Old Testament saints are going to be part of his administration. And because of the righteous rule, there's not going to be the corruption in government like what we see now. It's all going to be reversed. Whoever holds a position will hold it because they earned it. You who are faithful with a little, come, I will give you much more. I'll put you in charge of much more. If you can be trusted with a little in this life, this little temporary life, I'm going to put you in charge of much more and things that are more eternal, much vaster and greater in righteousness in this coming kingdom. My reliability for Jesus Christ, towards Jesus Christ right now, affects what I will be doing. The scope of, the importance of, the significance of, in this coming kingdom. And it's true for every single one of us. So what I'm saying is the culture, the zeitgeist for 1,000 years is going to be all this population that's exploding, and the sin nature is in all these people. It'll be a population just like we have right now, and they'll fill the earth, and they'll be ruled by righteous governments around the world because there'll be multiple nations around the world. At the end, all those people whose evil and sin nature and their true in their heart unwillingness to yield to Jesus Christ, but they've just been forced to because that's the kind of society the kingdom has been for 1,000 years, somehow Satan is going to come out and he's going to rally them. He's going to somehow mobilize them. He's going to turn them into an army, and he is going to release, if you will, all of that potential rebellion that's been building up for 1,000 years in them. And then, boom, they're going to converge right here, and their destiny is fire raining down from heaven, Revelation 20 says. Any questions? So we have a couple minutes. Let's do 2 to 3 minutes. Let's do maybe 2 questions. If they're super quick, we'll do a third one. How's that? All right? Awesome. I'm going to get out of here before you guys ask questions. No. Anybody got a question on any of that? I know I just what were you saying last week, Rami? It's just like drinking from a fire hydrant. I meant to slow down today. Clearly that didn't happen. Yes. Yes. So, like Isaiah 5 says, when it says, what is bitter will be called sweet, what is sweet will be called bitter, what is up will be called down. It's like a complete reversal of the world. Like God was talking about this through Isaiah, where what is right will be called wrong, what is wrong will be called right, what is evil will be called good, what is good will be called evil. Tell me that's not happening right now, right? And then that's all now, and it's going to reach its apogee in the tribulation when the Antichrist is ruling, like the good for evil, evil for good. But you're right. Once Christ comes, it'll be completely reversed. What is right will be called right. What is evil will be called evil. It's not that inversion of what is good and true and right will no longer be in this kingdom. But this kingdom is going to be a demonstration of the true condition of those unbelievers who suppress their unbelief and their unrighteousness because of the outward externals of government and society and culture. But God is going to prove their evilness all the way at the end of the kingdom that they never believed in him. They'll probably go through all the sacrifices. They'll do all the religious rituals that are going to be assigned in the kingdom, those sorts of things. They'll do all the outward things like you can do now. You can get baptized. You can come to church. You can participate in the various communion and the various rituals and do outward things, but not inwardly be made alive and not inwardly have faith in Christ. That's possible now. It's going to be possible then too. It is going to happen. Okay? Now, I don't know. My question would be this, and then Gerard, I'll give you the question. Does that even make sense to you guys as I try and explain the way I see it? Does that make sense? Does it seem off base? Okay? I might get 10 emails like, that was off base. I didn't want to say so in front of everyone. Gerard. Psalm 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Psalm 2 is that great, it's Jim Warren's favorite psalm. Psalm 2 is where God says, see, I have established my son, right, on Zion, not in heaven, on earth. And he says, all you rulers of the earth, bow down and worship him. Kiss him, lest you be destroyed in your way. Right?
So
there will be consequences. It'll be a just society. There will be a just, righteous government. The Prince of Peace, his peace is going to be established. It's like everything we say, everything we want, everything we petition for, vote for, hope for, fight against, fight for politically and culturally and everything, all of that we're striving for, right? Good in every way. But the ultimate establishment of all that ideal and dream that we really want to have, the ultimate establishment of that is going to be when Christ is on the earth, because it'll be established by him. That's why you get these clowns. I call them clowns in love. They're brothers and sisters, but they're clowns because they're horrible with the scriptures. And they say, oh, we're already in the 1,000 years right now, and the church is supposed to be Christianizing the world so that Christianity becomes the dominant influence in all of society around the world, so that when Jesus returns physically to the earth, we got the house ready for him. But that's not what the Bible teaches in the least. It doesn't teach that in the least. And the verses they use to describe it, this is what drives me insane. The verses they use to describe it, they manipulate horribly to do it. And they make far-reaching conclusions from scriptures that don't even give them the slightest base to make these conclusions. The church is not going to transform the whole world and make it ready as a righteous kingdom for Jesus to come down and just sort of like be the last piece of the puzzle, and he sits on the throne and is like, whew, you guys made this easy. No, it's not at all what it's going to be. It's going to be him coming down, complete draining of the swamp, purging of everything, everyone, bloodbath of a judgment. It's going to be violent and then glorious as resurrections happen, as descents of the church happen. And then I can't wait for him, like in my mind's eye, what I envision of him going up to the throne in Jerusalem, like this aisleway, like angels above, like crowds of people as far as the eye can see, like he's going up to sit on that throne for the first time. I mean, come on, man. I can't wait for that. Okay, that was way too long of an answer for that question. Rami, you got a super quick question, and it's a softball, which I'm so predicting.
Okay, the free will chosen.
The what?
Free will and chosen.
Free, are you talking about like God choosing and then us our free choice?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Okay, here I am. Here I am, and you throw one right at my chin. Imagine that, we're out of time. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for Rami, Lord. Thank you for this body of believers and the joy we get around your word each week. May you bless the teachings. May you bless our faith and our hope in Christ, Lord, and may he come and may our hearts long day after day for him. In Jesus we pray, amen. Thank you, you guys. You too, Rami.